Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
Hello, everyone. Tamara here again. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Sandy, and we'll be talking about her great sex life and how to make that happen, or how she does at least. If you like this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it and rate it as well. And thanks for joining me, Sandy.
Sure. Thank you.
So we can either jump right into it and then get started on the part we mentioned. I know we talked earlier, we met recently, but we hit it off at our function and like to talk about the same kind of stuff. So why do you think, you had mentioned that you guys pretty much have sex every day, and I was like saying how that is very not common for most couples nowadays.
No,
so
it's not. We met 18 years ago, and he's and to top it off, he's a veteran. He's Army amputee. He's a left leg below the knee. Not someone I would have dated just personality wise, I think. But I was getting out of an 8.5 years of relationship. And he kind of came along and I was looking for fun, which 18 years later is still fun. And then, so we got married about 2 years into us meeting. Yeah, almost exactly. He proposed 1.5 years in, and we got married. We've always we did the whole love language test, which I'm a big advocate of. I'm a big advocate of taking that test with anyone, friends, family, parents, kids. I think it's really important to find out what that other person, how they give and receive love. Just so happens that he is touch and quality time, and so am I.
So am I, by the way.
That helps. And like when I tell people that, they're like, that's sex. And I said, it's not personal touch. It's a hug, right? It's a hug when you need it. It's a touch. It could be a grab on the ass. But it's more of just the affection, just the showing of that. And that's how I have been too. My dad's always been a hugger. My mom, not so much. She didn't come from that. I don't think my dad did either. How he turned out that way, I don't know. I'm really affectionate with my kids too. I like to give them hugs, and I have an 11-year-old boy and a 14-year-old daughter. So they're both kind of pushing me away right now, but I tell them it's what I do anyway, so they're going to have to live with it. But Josh and I have always we've always kept it alive. We have kids, and even after having babies, hormones are crazy. I was nursing. I couldn't wait for the 6 weeks to be up, and I could, get it on quick. Even though it was not fun, I felt like I was going back to when I was 16. But we've always had this very open communication too, which I feel is really important in a marriage. Is understanding that love language, understanding the fact that ours are the same, which is great. We're very different personality wise. I'm very outgoing and social. He's very introverted. We're very accepting of each other, which I think is important. And also as you're growing, right? So he met me and I was 25. This is not the 25-year-old body that he met. So things have changed. Gravity took place. And even now I'm 44 and I apparently just started perimenopause, and I'm learning all about that now because that completely changes a woman too. Not totally all the time, but I've always had a really high sex drive. I was never really into like drugs or drinking. I was into boys, and that could have been really problematic if I wasn't safe. But I was always very curious about sex. My whole life, I porn and masturbation, like all of those things. It was just so fascinating to me. I was really curious. I found my parents stupid porn video things in between their mattress. Like I knew where they hid everything. And I was just, I just wanted to find out. Now, fast forward, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I'm very open with her too. I have my limits with her, obviously, but I'll tell her like, hey, look, I know you're not stupid. Like, you're going into high school, and she probably knows way more than I do anyway. But I think a lot in me personally, I've always had that sex drive. So it's been helpful to keep that alive. I'm very much an instigator. So he should be lucky, I tell everybody. Because I am. I'm just like, as soon as these kids, of course we do it with the kids in the house. And we've always prioritized us. I love my kids. Since day one, but we've always made sure that us and our foundation is strong. Because if our foundation isn't strong and our foundation isn't on fire, then the rest of it is going to fall apart. I mean, we have a lot of friends who have sexless marriages, sleep in separate rooms, no judgment. I mean, to each his own. If it works, it works. But I told him I would die the day he chose not to touch me.
Yeah. Well, and I know experts do say that you should put your relationship first so kids can see like what a loving relationship looks like. And then they strive to have the same kind of thing when they grow up, and everyone has healthy relationships that way, instead of trying to act like, especially in like sex being taboo and bad and all that.
Yeah.
So it's like, a healthy sex life, a healthy everything. Yeah. So.
And my daughter, we close the door and we lock it. Well, at least we try to every time. And now, we're encountering ages where our kids used to go to bed earlier. So, 8:30, 9 o'clock, it was game on because the kids were in bed, the house quiet. We have a 1-floor house, but we have a split level, right? So our kids are on one side, we're on the other. But now they're older, so they stay up later. But I need to still get up and go to work. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to wait until they're sleeping. So not like I'm swinging from the rafters and screaming my head off, but I lock the door. And there was one time, and it was probably like last year, maybe the year before that, my daughter came at 10:30 at night, was jiggling the doorknob. I'm like, nope. So the next day I told her, I said, hey, listen, when the door's locked, the door's locked. And she's like, ew, gross. And I said, hey, be happy that your parents are still doing it, because we could be fighting or divorced. So I said, if that's the worst, you got to worry about it. I said, Charlotte, we're not, going to be doing that. But, so I think a part of it for her, is just like, hey, listen, that's what it is. And we close the door, and that's,
and that's
important.
A healthy thing adults do. Yeah. So how do you think you were were you raised where it was like your parents were the same way, or
Yep.
It was just more your curiosity? Okay. Yeah.
Well, not as vocal. My mom was just like, don't come home pregnant. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and I was helping her do something, and she's like, are you having sex? I was like, yes. And she's like, all right, we're going to doctor. And I did. She put me on the pill when I was 16. She wasn't like she was encouraging it, but her and my dad are high school sweethearts, and they've been together since she was in 10th grade. And she's like, hey, I know what we were doing. So it wasn't, there was an encouragement. There was just a reality. There was a safety about everything. She liked to scare the shit out of me all the time about like STDs and pregnancy, so I kept being raped. I mean, I had like all the talks. My parents were pretty active. I grew up in an 800 square foot house. It was 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. I shared a wall with my parents. No, that's why we have the house we do now, because I vowed that I would never want to share a wall with my kid, because there were times where I slept with a pillow. They thought I was sleeping. I slept with the pillow and the fingers in the ears, because I wasn't like, I was younger, obviously. So I grew up with that, seeing seeing that love. My parents were never like super affectionate in front of us. I never like kissed my mom goodbye before he left, but there wasn't, my husband and I were always not like grossly groping each other, but we're always hugging each other and like, just we hold hands where we go. We kiss all the time throughout the house. And like we were floating in the pool the other day with the kids and I was holding on to him. And I don't know. I never wanted it to be taboo. I still want them to both come to me, and be able to talk about it.
Yeah. And that just reminded me how, like, what do you say? I mean, I know said you were open with her, but like what age, or how did you have the talk for the people that are too afraid to have the talks with their kids?
So
like
fifth grade, they have the talk, in school, birds and bees and STDs apparently. So I find that very funny. So I, right before they did that talk, I wanted to tell them how babies were made. So I went to the library. I got a book. It was great. It was a picture book, page 28. I'll never forget page 28 because you flipped it over and it blatantly said the man gets on top of the woman, puts the penis in the vagina. And both of my kids were mouth drop, kind of thing. And I was like, all right. So any questions? Say they were about 10. My daughter was, we had went to Amsterdam, my husband and I, and we were talking, and obviously we know Amsterdam's pretty free. But what I find fascinating in Amsterdam, the Netherlands itself, is that they start to teach sex at 4, but it's not sex. They start to teach about touch and comfort. So, do you like to be hugged? Who do you like to be hugged by? How long do you like to be hugged? We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about comfort, which I think is super important.
Yeah,
I do. Then they have a museum in Amsterdam that is only for ages, I don't know, I could be wrong, 10 to 18, I could be wrong, but and only those ages, only one day of the year can anybody over the age of 18 go in. And it's all interactive and it's all on drugs, drinking, and sex. And I find that fascinating because there was a study, we were talking with a lot of people there, and they said there was a study done with teens in the Netherlands between the ages of 15 and 17 and what their experience was for their first time sexually. And 80% of them said that it was pleasurable. They felt safe. It was fun. 20% of the US between the ages of 15 and 17 said that. So when we found this out, my husband had turned to me and he's like, why aren't we teaching this? Yeah. So I came home and immediately told my son how babies were made. And it was like a few months before he turned 10. And he's like, okay. And I tell them both, I've had the conversations where, your bodies are changing. If you ever feel like, we're coming to the ages where maybe we need more privacy, doors get closed. We don't open doors without knocking, this is a point, and I make everything normal, right? I've told my daughter, when she was scared to use tampons, I'm like, hey, listen, explore yourself. It's your body. And before you let anybody else explore it or figure it out, you know it first. You know what feels good, what doesn't feel good, I said, and she, Mom, you're going to get that backlash from a kid. But I've found that to be huge. Just say it. You're going to get that from your kid. There might be some kids who will ask questions. Mine go, Mom, which is fine because at least I said it and I leave it open for them to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I just heard like you said about the 20% in the US, I just have to comment on that. I've definitely heard a lot of people just want to get it over with and they didn't necessarily like the first person they were with. And I regularly think, whatever, my first boyfriend was someone that, I did all the things with him, but he was the only one. And I learned everything from him.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that experience of just losing your virginity in the back seat just to get it over with, and and then not liking sex because it didn't feel good, and like that's way too common.
It is, and I'm hoping that I can with both, and I have a boy and a girl, so I'm hoping I can do that with both of them. And at least be there if they have questions. And I'm not going to always be there for everything. I'm not going to always be able to try to explain it. But there might be times where I can't. And there's books and things, that book that I had for the kids. I wish I remembered what it was. It was great, though, beginning to end.
Yeah. 'Cause the other thing that makes me think of is the double standard. Like boys are taught like, oh, have all the fun, and the girls are labeled. I don't think it's as much nowadays, but, just because you have a boy and a girl, like, do you see yourself teaching them differently or having them both have the same patterns? And what are your thoughts on that topic?
It's funny because I told my daughter the other day, this is like yesterday, the day before, I said, your brother might come to you instead of me on things. And I want you to be the bigger sister and to use the opportunity to teach him how to treat women and how to be gentle and kind and honest and communicating. I said, I know if he comes to me, great. I'm prepared to have that conversation. But if he doesn't, I need you to step up as the big sister. I'm a big sister too. So, and be there to explain it. My 17, well, no, she was 17. Now she's 30. But when she was 17, my aunt never explained anything to her. She just figured she learned it on her own. She was very naive, didn't have a whole lot of friends, just kind of, smart, did her own thing. But she didn't know anything. She got a boyfriend. She was 17. And I'll never forget, my parents had a hot tub and we're outside and we're sitting there. And I'm 8 years older than her. And she asked me, and she looked at me and she goes, Sandy, I have to ask you something. And I said, okay. She goes, well, I have a question about blowjobs. And I said, oh, all right. Yeah, sure. She goes, do you put the penis and the balls in your mouth? And I was like, oh no, we have to. I'm like, well, if you can. No, just kidding. And she didn't know what one looked like either. So I went and Googled, and here I am again, 8 years older than her. And I Googled, not a scary picture. I was trying to look for a decent picture. Like, I don't want to trick you, and I don't want to. So I did, and I had the conversation with her. And I guess like a couple months ago, my aunt, who is now 60, said to me, well, you're just better at that. And I said, well, you didn't do it. So I wasn't going to let her flounder. I mean, she was 17. It's not like she was 12. If she was 12, then I might have been like, well, maybe you need to have a conversation with your mom or another trusted. But at the same time, I was the trusted adult. So it's tricky, but I vowed, I'm like, I will never let my kids flounder like that.
Yeah. And I know like school teaches, I was listening to something recently, I can't remember where, schools definitely teach the fundamentals of getting pregnant, but they don't teach like the relationship side of it or the loving side of it, or, they just teach the mechanics of it, or at least they used to. I don't know if
they do. And they don't, the mechanics, and that's it. And STDs, like that's really, there's a giant focus on that, which is great. I mean, show all the gross pictures. Is it biologically going to keep a kid from doing something? I don't think so, but scary for a little bit. But I definitely want to be the one to teach my kids, like what pleasure is, and whether it be yourself with yourself. I always grew up, I mean, it was funny because one of my friends and I were having a conversation about girls, masturbating at this age. And someone said, do you think we should get him a vibrator? And I said, no, I don't. And I said, and here's the thing. I said, I think we all need to double click our mouse and figure that out on our own manually, because there's not always a magic vibrator around. And I, as an adult, I have a whole goodie box of things. But manually, I'm good. I don't need anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that is ideal because, like you said, especially in the military, you can't always have. Or if you go to the Middle East,
no, I mean it's not something you're just gonna like keep in your purse. I mean, I know they make them that small nowadays. So yeah.
Because I'm also I mentioned OMG. Yes, it's a website where it's like literal tutorials and videos, and I have like an affiliate link on the descriptions of each of my podcasts, and it's very cheap for like a lifetime membership. But it's literally videos and stuff. And where was I going with that? Except for, that's what I've heard of people doing it like really young ages. And there's all these examples of like, oh, I used to do this. And have you done that? And I'm like, no, like I didn't know, like, I guess like little kids. And I think someone like close to me, I know, did this as well, like kind of like rubbing, like laying on your stomach and rubbing a certain way with toys or things. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. Like I feel like I missed out.
I mean, like pillows and teddy bears were too. I mean, figured it all out.
I never even tried or thought of it. Like it was pretty crazy. Like I definitely was a later bloomer for all that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't. I think my mom said, I used to catch you humping stuff. And I'm like, still do. But I don't know. I think that's also part of like the marriage thing too, right? We're married for 16 years. And I feel like a large part of it is having that conversation with your spouse, being able to openly say like, hey, I like this, or I want to try that. Can you get yourself in trouble? Yeah, you can, because there's a lot of things to try. Again, having the open communication. And sometimes it's not both of us. I believe in therapy too. If you both can't get to where you want to be, maybe seeing a sex therapist, or because I think we're not so open. We're more ashamed of things that interest us, right? They're things that excite us. My husband and I have been to strip clubs. I've gotten lap dances. He's gotten lap dances. I mean, if you're open to those things and you're okay, like you have, but the communication is key. And sometimes the communication can get fuzzy. You can get in trouble.
Yeah. Or if they think they wanted to try it. And then once they get there, like, oh, wait, I didn't want to. And
you have to be able to jump back on that same page. Like I like porn. I've liked porn for a long time. My husband and I are very vocal in bed. I think that's also, we kind of like share stuff, and sometimes we have to check in, like, hey, what you said, did you like did you want to do that? Do you not? So I think that's another part of too. Like, it's fun to talk dirty, but you kind of
yeah. Like, it's just something to say, or do you actually want to do it?
Or this what we're saying? Watching porn together. It's not something we do all the time, but it is sometimes like, hey, you grab the phone or something. Keeping that fire, keeping that. I think there is a thing with pheromones. I really do believe in it, because, I mean, my husband, he will tell you he's overweight. He doesn't work out. He does struggle with things. He might be particularly extremely hairy, but I can't stop touching him all the time. Clothes on, clothes off, whatever. Trying not to, embarrassing things are going to happen. We've all been there. Trying to like, hey, get over it. Like, it's a body, right? And when you think about it, sex is kind of gross. Not like gross, but it's like, very interesting that we like can be really messy. And hey, my period might come in the middle of it, and I'd be like, oh shit, and he's okay, Did I plan on it? No. but it's those types of things. And again, like sometimes there was a point where we got into like picture taking, video. And it mean, you know what, if looking at me turns him on during the day when I'm at work, great. I want to be that person. I mean, he watches porn too. That's fine. He tells me, I tell him. We talk about masturbation too, though. That's another thing. Like, I'd be like, hey, or if I want to one night, or he might have like just jerked off and you're like, hey, I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah. Okay. I'll do my own. Yeah.
But,
yeah. And what you said earlier about accepting each other. I mean, that's the bottom line. Because when you feel accepted and you feel wanted, you're going to reciprocate and like, be attracted and be interested in each other. And when you just that acceptance and feeling sexy and feeling wanted is like crucial. And I think a lot of people skip that part when they start getting mad about other stuff. That's like the first thing to go. And
it is. He will, we'll get dressed up to go out, and he'll say, like, oh, that looks really good, or I love your tits, or it makes me feel good. What works for one person might not work for the other person, but that has to be communicated too. Like if I didn't want him to tell me that, I'd tell him. But that's okay. I do keep myself up. I dye my own hair in my bathroom. I paint my own nails in my living room. I do my own makeup. I'm like, I shave my legs. I shave everywhere. Again, that's personal preference. But I kind of we're very open. Now, if I didn't, would he have a problem? I don't know. He's never said otherwise, but I've just always kind of kept myself. There's parts of me that have definitely changed over time. Now that I'm hitting this age of like weight loss isn't as easy, or, you eat something and it immediately goes to the middle of your stomach. It's just what it is. And him and I talk about how that, the landscape's going to change, as we get both age. And, it was fun. I was just having a conversation with a friend the other night, and she's her husband's 49, mine's 43. And she was saying how he's just entering an age where he needs a little assistance, and she's entering the age where she does too. And I'm scared because I've never had a problem in that area of like needing lube but I know it's going to come. And I get scared, but I'm like, okay, we have this great communication. We have other things we like to do too. Like, it's not just we have sex all the time. We love going to concerts. We love just hanging out together and just sit and watch. Tonight we're going to go and I'm going to sing at open mic. Our daughter's going to come with us. We're going to have dinner. Like, it's not always about that. We're very supportive over each other's things. I also do things on my own without him. I'll go and see a concert if he doesn't want to go. I'll go by myself. I'll go with a friend. We have that trust. That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. And sometimes, you can, if you ever feel like it's not there, you got to, have that conversation. But there are parts that I would say that those are crucial.
Yeah. And that almost sounds like kind of like a final thoughts thing, but if there's anything else you wanted to add, I always, this is about the time where we start to close.
I don't know. Keep it alive. And you know what? Everybody says, for me, like everybody says, oh, marriage is so hard. I think finding the right person is hard. And once you found that person, then it's not easy, but I think it's easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like all the people on the dating apps, all the single people are out there. That's exactly what they're like. You're trying to find the right one. And that's the hard part, is distinguishing and giving up when they're not the right one sooner than later. So you don't waste all that time with the wrong one.
Don't waste time.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. That was awesome. And I'm glad we got the sex talk about the kids too. And of course, the relationship stuff too. Good info. So if you like this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it and rate it as well. You can do it right after you listen. You click the stars, preferably 5. Thank you. All right. And thanks again, Sandy. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.